Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Football Insomniac. It is Friday and I'm joined as always by my co-host Seán McGill. Seán, how's it going?
I'm good, thanks, mate. Smashing weather and a good mood. What about yourself?
I mean, you can complain about the weather all you want. It's been beautiful outside. It's a struggle to sleep inside, but we get there.
So bad. So bad.
And you're joining us on Facebook, on YouTube and on Twitter for what is the series finale of the Football Insomniac. Seán,
which one of us dies?
It's been a pleasure being joined by you for this series. We've had 3 series now with the Football Insomniac. This has been up there. This is definitely one of the best times. We've covered Scotland at the Euros for the first time in, 23 years. We've had some great guests on. It's going to be a shame when we're not going out live on the Insomniac anymore.
It's been great, and I need to thank you for having me. It's just been good to talk rubbish about football from all over the world with you on a Friday night. What better way to start the weekend, eh?
Some would say that, and I'm sure it'll be a shame for those that are joining us when we're not here. But all I can say at the moment, because it's not been announced, is myself and Seán will be working together in another capacity very soon. So keep an eye out for that on this channel. But I'll get not too nostalgic about this because I've loved doing this podcast, but we'll talk about that later on. We've got a lot to go through today. We've got Scott McPipe joining us from SN Media, and we're going to talk about the behind-the-scenes action on transfer rumour reporting. How can you get it as accurate as possible? Some of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. Where do you get your sources? And we'll talk about some of the big Scottish transfer rumours. We'll also be discussing Arsenal's documentary series on Netflix, as well as on Amazon, as well as discussing some of the other football documentaries that have went on in the past. We're going to take a look at the Premier Sports Cup as it goes into its final match weekend this week in the group stages, and also touch on the Premier League's vaccination programme, where it looks as if players, members of staff and coaches will have to be double vaccinated before the season begins. But just before we begin, we've got Jerry H coming in again to say, "Hola, mis dos amigos, ¿cómo estás?" Muy bien, Jerry. You too, Seán?
I'm good, aye.
Aye, we'll go with that.
I'm joking, I've got higher Spanish, I got it.
But let's start, because Scott is joining us later on, with Arsenal's documentary series. Now, it's been confirmed that they are the next team in Amazon's All or Nothing series. This is the bit that really surprised me. How much do you think they get paid for this documentary series?
That's a great question.
It's not in the quiz later on, don't worry.
Thank God. You'd have to think it's a very good amount of money. I'm going to say 60 million.
60 million? Is that what you think? By £10 million.
That's not very much, is it?
Well, I mean,
in the grand scheme of elite football, that only gets them like Thomas Partey and a half.
And wages for a year.
True. Yeah.
Maybe it'll pay Gunnar-Saurus's wages, but we'll get there. Now, for this, they get full behind-the-scenes access into the training ground, into games. But let's be honest, everybody that's signed up for these Netflix series or Amazon series, very few of them have been successful. So, looking at this, Seán, what are you expecting to see in this Amazon All or Nothing Arsenal season 2021-22?
I think it's going to be interesting. Arsenal are such a strange club at the moment because, like I said, when I'm talking about like elite football, they are still a part of that. They were going to be a Super League club. They are still in the big six, if not the top six of Premier League football. But they've underachieved since Arsene Wenger left. There's no denying that. And Mikel Arteta is a very sort of highly rated coach, but I think there's still question marks on him as a manager. And because of Arsenal fan TV and all that type of thing, that Arsenal are a club who tend to kind of get the mick taken out of them a lot, and it seems to be that it's funny more than most to laugh at Arsenal. So there's genuine questions. What's going on behind the scenes? What's going on with the recruitment strategy? Do they have that? And it seems now that they're pushing more of the youngsters into the team. We saw Emile Smith-Rowe sign a contract extension this week after Aston Villa were very keen on him. And speaking of Aston Villa, I mean, they beat Arsenal to the signing of Emi Buendia, who's been one of the best players in the Championship last season, if not the best. And what sort of state of affairs does that say if Aston Villa, no disrespect to them, but it's only their third season back in the Premier League, are beating Arsenal to a signing? There's something going on there. And perhaps this documentary can shed some light on that. Of course, they want it to be in a positive light, but the documentary can only do that if there's positive things going on, and if Arsenal have a successful season on the pitch, which will, of course, be the most important thing to their fans.
Now, see, when you take a look at it, right, if they've started doing the recording already, they've been up in Scotland for their pre-season friendlies. They've lost 2-1 to Hibs and drew 2 each with Rangers. And in both games, they've had absolute howlers. Do you think this is an indication of how this season's going to go, or do we just write that off as pre-season?
I said last week that I don't like reading too much into pre-season, but I mean, I think that Arsenal actually picked up towards the end of last season, but there's still like the big defensive question marks over them. I think now you're starting to see that some of their attacking players could come good, but you need to eradicate those sort of those mistakes. Well, I don't think you could say they're just not focused because it's pre-season. I mean, you see that happening. It seems to be sort of rash decisions at Arsenal. I mean, Leno's a good keeper, but then it's just like things seem to happen. They don't always benefit Arsenal. So I think that it's hard to know where to place them going into this season. I wouldn't confidently say that. I don't think they're good enough to get Champions League, but I wouldn't rule them out of European football. But then if they finish sort of 9th, 10th as well, right now I'm not saying that's a massive shock.
No, I don't think so, because that's sort of where they've been sitting in their trajectory over the last couple of years. So that would be where I would kind of anticipate them kind of falling, especially when it doesn't look as if they're going to strengthen massively in the transfer window either.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't seem like that. It seems that they're going for these more sort of long-term build for the future signings, which maybe at least that's having a plan and sort of a long-term project. But it was all the talk that Wenger didn't win enough there, that they sort of got the bit taken out of him for saying 4th place isn't a trophy and all that sort of stuff. But I mean, they've not been in the Champions League since. I mean, constantly they're sort of dropping out of that. Now they're not even European football at all next season. Yeah. So, like you said, it has been a decline. So, if it was to be a sort of lower mid-table finish, I don't think anybody could say they didn't see that coming, because unless they sort of make positive changes, if players stay fit, if Arteta really sort of imposes himself on this side, then it doesn't seem like much is going to change.
No, and let's go through some of the ones that have done behind the series documentary in the Premier League. We'll start with the success, Man City. Now, Man City's was a fantastic watch. If anyone hasn't seen it, I highly recommend it. And I believe under that season, they went on to win the league. They get knocked out of the Champions League by Spurs, but they went on to win the league. And overall, you'd say that's a success.
Yeah, I think that's the Centurion season for Manchester City, the one where they got over 100 points on the final day against Southampton with that last-minute Gabriel Jesus equaliser or whatever. I can't quite remember. But I think that to watch Pep Guardiola work, I mean, people still criticise him because he hasn't won a Champions League well, but the man's an absolute genius, and to get insight into how he speaks to players before games, during games, was just like, if you're interested in football, then I think you've got to watch that just to see how that man works, because, like I said, he's an absolute genius.
That, looking across all of the ones that I've watched, was the only successful one. That was the only one you could say where the team's been successful. Now let's take a look at the ones where the teams weren't successful. And we'll start with the one that's probably the most recent, in Tottenham Hotspur, who were the last ones on the All or Nothing. Now, in this series, if you haven't seen it, I'm not spoiling it for anyone, because you can look into football history and see what happened. But they get rid of their manager, they get rid of Pochettino, and brought in Jose Mourinho. And the behind the scenes that you see with Jose Mourinho, it shows you that he's a great coach. He is a fantastic man manager. But some of the things are just crazy. What he tries to get, and the way that Spurs team were in the dressing room, the disrespect they had for him from day one, it is clear to see why he was not a success at that football club. But fantastic viewing.
Oh, so good. And I think that's part. I think we spoke about this before on the show, that I think it's part of the reason he was appointed, because he knew Daniel Levy knew that there was going to be cameras pointed, and Maurizio Pochettino having a middling season and then keeping him on the next wasn't going to make for fantastic viewing. But to get Jose Mourinho in and sort of model Spurs as this like sort of world superpower, with Jose Mourinho, who's long been sort of regarded as one of the best coaches in the world, onto their sort of platform, would work really, really well. And obviously it didn't. But I mean, that documentary still paints that season as a success because it looked like they weren't going to get European football for a while, and then on the last day they sealed the Europa League, and it was going to be sort of now Mourinho can have his first full season and really impose himself. Not been the case, was it?
What was also interesting about that as well is it's a way back at the start of the pandemic, and you saw how football clubs actually adapted to that, especially Spurs. They had the big screen where everyone was cameraed in. You saw their training programmes and what protocols were like when they started to get back into training and playing. So that was a fantastic insight, considering a lot of that's probably still going on just now as we're starting to come out of the pandemic. Liverpool. Now, Liverpool did one, and it was not on Amazon, it was not on Netflix. It was called Inside Liverpool, and Brendan Rodgers was the manager at the time. This is around the time that they brought in guys like Mario Balotelli, and this is kind of where it all went downhill from there. That was a harder watch because it wasn't as in-depth, but still some fantastic scenes came out of it. The one I do want to speak about, but because I think it's one of the best ones, is Sunderland Till I Die. That was outstanding.
I mean, some of the stuff from that. I mean, like, to get that access is amazing, and for Sunderland, the fact Sunderland did that for so long, for 2 seasons as well, and to give insight into the absolute shambles that football club were, is quite a. I mean, I don't even think you need to be a football fan necessarily to enjoy that, because if you're just sort of interested in sports generally, or even like just how businesses can be mismanaged, like run into the ground. Like I know that sort of famous scene for the second season where I can't remember his name, but that really sort of middle class owner that they had in the second season in League One, where he's trying to tell everyone how he wants to turn it into like sort of like Discoland, Ibiza kind of atmosphere.
This is my favourite scene. This is what I've got written down as my favourite scene. So for anyone that hasn't seen it, to give you the background, the guy who's actually now left Sunderland tells the stadium team that he wants to frighten the opposition into fear when they come out at the Stadium of Light. And how does he do it? He plays Red Sandstorm. Now, a classic rave tune of the 90s, Red Sandstorm. But, I mean, in Sunderland, I really couldn't see that going down well. And from the clips that you saw when they came out to it, all you saw was fans with their hands over the ears, screaming in agony of how loud it was.
And like in that scene when he's delivering it, it's like a really bad like episode of The Apprentice as well, where all the people around him were just like looking at him like he's an absolute idiot. And I don't know, I don't know how he wound up being at Sunderland. It just didn't seem to sort of get the sort of relationship between the fans and the club or the city or anything like that. It just seemed completely off. And I mean, it was getting rid of a song that had been there for a long, long time to play Red Sandstorm and just try and get this atmosphere going. He just was not the right fit for that football club, and it's kind of a shame to see that could happen. But
wrong comment there. Greg Hay coming in to say the Will Grigg part when Jack Ross said not to pay the fee is madness. Now, I think Jack Ross, now the Hibs manager, said pay a maximum of £1.5 million on transfer deadline day. Don't go any higher. And they end up paying £4.5 million. And they asked why the club was in such a shambles. It is absolutely ridiculous. Speaking about that part where you're talking about it felt like a scene from The Apprentice, I felt as if that guy came across. Now, I've not seen the UK version of it, but I've seen the US version of The Office, and he comes across as the sort of Michael Scott character from the US version of The Office. Totally inept, totally out of his depth. And people that's watched the UK one will know David Brent's is that kind of guy. But that was real life. I don't think that was put on for the cameras. That is generally how these people were.
It's just crazy, isn't it, that people can get that far in life and get to these positions. But I just seem completely out of touch where, like I said, with football, with the city, with what Sunderland means to those fans, and just wanted to sort of have his wee moment in the sun where he could put his stamp on a football club that wasn't his to put a stamp on. It's for the fans, and it's a wee bit sickening actually. I mean, you can laugh at it, but it's like if it was your football club and you watched that and you saw folk like that running your club, it would make you feel a bit sick.
And do you know what? These documentaries can do wonders for a football team. Even taking football out of the equation, the NFL does it every single season. They pick a team from around the leagues and you get in behind the scenes. You see the guys that they pick up off the draft and you see their character development. And I think there is some character development in the UK ones as well. If you've watched the Man City one, their kit man, he becomes the unsung hero of the whole series. He goes into the cryo chambers after Vincent Kompany, and you can tell he's a fan that's living his dream. And you do find yourself getting an attachment to the characters and they become your favourite characters throughout it. And the Hearts one, even the groundsman, you couldn't help but like the groundsman for his love for the club. So it was great to see. But sometimes it can go horribly wrong. And the one that springs to mind when it's horribly wrong is to do with Ron Atkinson. I don't know if you've seen this one, Sean. It was Big Ron Manager on Sky One. So this was one of the very first. This was one of the very first ones. So Ron Atkinson, obviously famous football manager, and had his famous TV output where basically he was blacklisted after some of his comments that he said, which nobody can condone. But he was brought in to Peterborough United to help out a young, inexperienced manager, and Steve Bleasdale, as they were trying to fight relegation. Now, he was brought in the January, and by the April, Steve Bleasdale had left the club because he felt as if there was the influence from Sky One, he was the influence from Ron. They were trying to sign players that they couldn't afford. The club was going bust. You've heard of Barry Fry. He's right. The chairman there at the time. Incredible character, Barry Fry. He ends up leading the team out for the last 2 games of the season because this just went right downhill. Fantastic viewing if you're not a Peterborough fan, but some of the stuff that went on was outrageous. But for Peterborough fans, it did lead to something good because Dara McAntony, who is I believe is a fan of A State of Mind, has spoken to Paul John Dykes before. That leads to his takeover at Peterborough United. So anything that goes wrong, maybe something good can come out of it. It's the exposure of being on TV, and you can see exactly why teams like Hearts, Partick Thistle, Sunderland, Leeds, Peterborough, Spurs, they all sign up for these. It's the exposure that they're hoping to get from it.
Yeah, I mean, if you looked at other sports, I mean, the growth of F1 since Drive to Survive on Netflix has just been
outstanding as
properly exponential. It's a great one, and it's the reason I watch F1 now. I wasn't interested. I'm not a big car person. I've never enjoyed it. But once you understand the characters and the politics of it all, then that's when I got invested. I could decide. I had reasons to like drivers and dislike drivers. Why else would I care? But now I got that first buy and I got to understand the sport, and now I watch every single Grand Prix. So I think that football clubs and football as a sport doing that is a very smart move as well, and they can see that from, like you said, the NFL on top of that. So I think that's really, really important. But that exposure can never, the fans will never take that exposure out if that causes poor performances on the pitch. If that means that a manager who was doing a good job previously has been disrupted or anything along those lines, then I don't think you can say, oh, it's good exposure or we've got a decent amount of money, because they don't care. They want to see their team succeeding on the pitch, so that will always be number one.
Greg Hay comes in with a comment about Aidan McGeady's outburst during the Sunderland documentary, and I can't bring it up for obvious reasons, but it's one of those moments that sticks out from the whole thing. Right, opinion time. Amazon's going to continue doing this as long as people watch it, which means not this season, but the following season there will be another team. If you had to pick a team in the Premier League to be the next All or Nothing, who would you choose?
In the Premier League? Because if you're going to ask me, I know where I am, but if there was cameras at Celtic Park last season, it would have been some of the best viewing. I mean, I just hoped that the whole time. There was a secret camera crew in the bills of Parkhead, because what a season that would have been to have got behind the scenes of. In the Premier League, that's a very good question. I'm trying to think somewhere that seems a bit of a shambles, but I'm not sure. Can we do Spurs again with Nuno? I don't know. Is that allowed? There's ones where I'm interested in. Like I think that like Brentford and Norwich and how they do with their sort of models would be interesting. Newcastle, yeah, but I mean, it seems a bit boring now. It just seems like as long as they stay up, then that's about it. Really, that's all they're sort of fussed about. Should we do Brendan Rodgers take two and see if why it is that they fall away for every single season?
I'm just going to put a word out there. Jerry H comes in to say Leeds with Bielsa. Leeds actually did one with Bielsa. So if you've not seen that, go and watch it. It's fantastic. I'm just going to throw a name out here, a team out here.
Have I lost you?
It always happens when he looks good, though, Sean, doesn't it? I mean, look at that face.
I was still unsure if that was me or that was him, so I couldn't really tell. So that's why I was staying quiet for just now.
Well, I think is he back? It always happens just when you're pouting, Colin.
It's the what do you call it? We spoke about this. It's the Avalon look. For anyone that's seen that film, that's outstanding. Right, I was just going to say a team there, and I'll leave it at that. Right, Everton.
Yeah, that's a good shout actually. This season, those signings are. I don't know if I've lost you again, so I'm just going to keep talking in case I have. But I think their signings are so dry this season. I don't know what other people are thinking. People in the comments about Everton signings, but like Asmir Begovic, Damari Gray, who's the other one that I've just forgot there? Who's Andros Townsend? Like that? Those are not. Like, if Everton are going to kick on, which is the whole plan with getting a good manager like Rafa Benitez in and having all the money they have, then what's the point in making signings like that? So, I'm not too convinced on Everton this season.
What on earth is Colin up to? Shaw, what's Colin up to? He's under his desk. He's pulling out wires, all that kind of stuff. That's not a euphemism, by the way. We'll see if it works. Here we go. Are you good, Colin? He's frozen. Do the decoder reset procedure. That always works. Switch it off and back on. In the meantime, Sean, let me enter the realms of talking about football. I mean, what do I know about English football or world football? Well, who knows? A wee bit about Celtic. So let's go for it. Is Colin back? Is he back? Is he back?
Fingers crossed. I think I was covering for Jim Orr on the Celtic bulletin earlier, and I think I took his Wi-Fi as well. So yeah, let's leave it at Everton. We'll move on before someone tries to cut my Wi-Fi out again. We're going to be joined very shortly by Scott McPike to discuss what goes on behind the scenes in Transfer Rumours. The comment section are tearing me to shreds, but let's take a look at the Premier Sports Cup as we go into the last weekend of the group stages. Looking at the teams that are going through so far, Sean, is there anyone that kind of surprises you at being up there? I mean, for me, the obvious one would be in Group E, where it looks as if Ayr are going to qualify top of the group.
Aye, but they didn't. I mean, with some COVID cancellations they got in there, I don't think we can praise Ayr United too much for that. I mean, they beat Hamilton, which is a Hamilton away, which is a good result for Ayr. But it would have been all sort of riding on that final day against Falkirk, but Falkirk obviously can't fulfil that fixture, so it means that Ayr go through. And I think they'll probably go through as one of the top seeded clubs, which means they should, in theory, get an easier draw for the last 16. So I'm sure that's really exciting all those Ayr fans who will be hoping to see their club win their first ever major trophy, because they have won 0 in their entire history.
You're so bitter. I love it. It's only a week
till the derby.
Let's speak about Group G, which is Kilmarnock's group. This is actually one of the most entertaining groups when you look at it. So 5 teams in the group. Stranraer sit top at the minute after 3 games on 6 points. East Kilbride are eliminated basically with 5 points after 4 games. Clyde are sitting third, and you'll catch the Clyde podcast on just after us at 7 o'clock on A State of Mind. They're sitting third on 5. Kilmarnock are 4th on 5, and Morton are bottom on 3. And realistically, any 2 of those 4 teams can get out of the group stages, with Kilmarnock facing Stranraer and Morton playing Clyde at the weekend. Which 2 do you think will actually go through? Or let's say, who will finish top, because there's not a chance that they'll finish in the top 3 runners-up.
That's a tough one. I was at Kilmarnock versus Morton on Tuesday night for Energy Sport, And
penalties.
Kelly were not good in that game. They had the bit of the chances, but still not enough. There was no sort of cutting edge, really. And Morton, to be fair to them, sort of sat in their shape. It was a great goal from Lewis McGregor's first senior goal. Kelly eventually got that last-minute equaliser with Kyle Connell, and then won their first penalty shootout since 1984.
Seriously?
That's the last time we won a penalty shootout. It's every time we went to penalties against St Mirren in the Scottish Cup quarter-final last season, Aberdeen the season before. If it goes to penalties, Kelly fans to them that's it. That we're done. But we managed to. Zach Hemming, our new goalkeeper, on loan from Bournemouth, saved 3 of the 6 penalties. So he looked really, really good in that shootout. So hopefully that's a sign of things to come. Tommy Wright called it, said maybe it's an omen, and I hope it is. Kelly should beat Stranraer on Saturday, but it might have to be by a few goals, depending on the result between Morton and Clyde. Considering the performance that Morton put up at Rugby Park, I think they can beat Clyde, which would be good for Kelly. So I'm going to be optimistic and say Kelly top that group.
I hope Morton
that'll come back to bite me.
I hope Morton top it. Let's look at Group B though. Group B has maybe one of the surprise packages of the competition so far, and it's Kelty Hearts. Now, a team that's recently just came up. You've obviously saw a lot of them covering the Lowland League. They're sitting in second place with 6 points after 3 games, and they go to Arbroath tomorrow. A victory there would see them finish as one of the top 3 runners-up. And, I mean, they could get one of the big teams in the next round. For a team that's only just been promoted, that's a fantastic result.
Yeah, it really is, and it shows the sort of quality of the Lowland League and why that should be opened up, because Kelty Hearts have been well above that sort of level for a long time, and are probably, with the signings they've made, I expect them to win League 2, I think, and do so fairly comfortably. So I think that it's no massive shock that they're doing so well, but Arbroath are a good team. It's one of those ones where Arbroath still maybe get slept on a bit, considering they're a part-time team in the Championship. But I mean, to stay up in that division for 2 seasons now, and to sort of could really compete against teams who are full-time consistently week in, week out, I think is a massive achievement for them. And Dick Campbell's one of the great characters of Scottish football, of course. So I'd like to see Arbroath do well, but I mean, like you said, a really big achievement for Kelty to be sort of contending at that level already. And if they were to get through, it wouldn't really shock me.
Another one that could cause a potential upset at the weekend is Forfar. They go up in the top of the group, clash against Dundee. Basically, the top team will go through, and probably the second place team will go through as runners-up. Forfar, one of those teams that have really struggled over the last couple of years due to the COVID outbreaks, the league's being cancelled, and they've struggled to keep up. I think did they drop down into League 2 there last season?
Yeah.
I mean, if they get through, what a massive income boost that is for someone like Forfar.
Definitely, and if it's the hands of Dundee who knocked Bonnyrigg out the Scottish Cup and relegated Kilmarnock, I will be delighted. So I'll fully be supporting Forfar Athletic at the weekend, absolutely.
Let it never be said, Seán, that you don't wear your heart on your sleeve. I just want to put that out there.
No chance. I've got grudges against pretty much every team in Scotland. Or something or other.
So looking at the teams that will go through to join, I believe they'll join St Johnstone, Celtic, Rangers, Hibs and Aberdeen in the next round. It looks as if it will be Hearts, Dundee United. The winners of Dundee or Forfar, probably both of them. Either Rafe or Livingston from Group D, which would be very interesting if Rafe could knock Livingston out. In Group E, Ayr are already qualified, and again, it depends on the games at the weekend who will join them. Group F, it could well be Airdrie, who beat Motherwell for the first time in a long time. An outstanding free kick. Motherwell's a team that this pre-season hasn't been kind to them. No,
and like I said, I don't want to read into pre-season too much, but I remember the season they finished third, that they looked massively impressive in the Premier Sports, or the Betfred Cup as it was then, group stage, and I was sort of like, why is everyone talking about Motherwell? It's just sort of League Cup. They're playing lower division sides, and they went on to have that fantastic season. So by the same token, they do look to be struggling just now. Yeah, it's a derby, and it means that anything can happen, and the atmosphere kind of changes it all. But they didn't look up to much at all. When Motherwell, I think, losing Devante Cole, they need to have that sort of cutting edge up front. Tony Watt, I think, has been a very good player for them, but he's not a goal scorer. You need someone who's going to finish these chances if they're going to be. And they did struggle. They managed to get themselves out of that last season. I think that was in large part to the signing of Liam Kelly, who pulled off pretty much one fantastic save a game to keep them in those contests. So I think that Motherwell might be at the drawing board a bit until the season properly gets underway, because they'll know that if they don't start making additions, then I think they could be in that relegation fight again.
We spoke about Group G, which Seán believes Kilmarnock will get through. I'm slightly hoping it's Morton. And Group H, where St Mirren and Dunfermline are battling out for the top spot. One of the things, but you mentioned earlier, and it kind of leads on to another thing I wanted to talk about today, is the fact that there's been the sort of COVID outbreaks, which have caused a lot of these games to be postponed. I think we're up to double figures now for the amount of games that have had to be called off because of this. Ross County have had an absolute nightmare because of it. Morton lost a game because of it. And it looks as though down south next season, all Premier League clubs, that is staff, players, backroom staff, etc., anyone that's part of the matchday squad or staff will have to be double vaccinated before the season kicks off. Now, this is them being forced to do so by the Premier League and by the government to allow the fans in. They're also speaking about fans having to be double vaccinated to get into games from October 1st. Do you think this is a dangerous precedent to send, considering a lot of the sort of hesitancy on the vaccines comes from younger fans, and clubs could be forced not to have those kind of fans on the ground?
It's a tough question, and you don't want to sort of get into sort of like political
not getting too political on
it. But first of all, I would say that I hope that young fans aren't sceptical of the vaccine, because the evidence is overwhelming that it is a safe vaccine. I would like to think that as many people as possible, my age and sort of around our age as well, would get it. But I'm not massively keen on folk being forced to do anything. And it sounds like if like staff of the Premier League and at club grounds, if they have any particular reason that they don't want to get it or feel like they can't get it, then they can't do their job. I don't think that's the right way to go about it. So I think it might lead to a conversation, and we'll see how that develops over the next few weeks. But it's certainly an area to keep an eye on, not even just in football, but in society, and how that sort of affects our lives going forward. But get the vaccine.
I mean, I'll admit I've been double vaccinated now. I have been for a while. And I know that down south it was slightly different to up here. For the Euros, you had to show your proof of vaccination or to have a negative lateral flow test before you could get into the Euros. Whereas up here, I'm looking forward to getting to the game on Saturday between Celtic and West Ham. And it's advised that you take a test. There's no mandatory thing there. So it will be interesting to see if that is implemented in the English Premier League, what ramifications that will have for the Scottish League. I think clubs have went through such a period where if there's a potential revenue impact on them, they'll start to stand up against it.
Yeah, I think because we spoke about it so many times on this show how vital money is and how that sort of dominates the way that modern football sort of grows and expands. So if it does take a big hit, then I think regardless, clubs might try and fight it anyway, just because they know how it might affect some staff, and they will be worried about that monetary aspect. But then I'm sure that they want people to be as safe as they can be as well. So there's kind of that. It's a fine line as this whole situation has been from the start. So and now that things are reopening, clubs, businesses all have to sort of combat that and decide how best to deal with it.
We're just waiting on Scott McPike joining us from SM Media, so we're just going to go through some of the comments, including this one from producer Paul. We're just 15 YouTube subs away from 13.2k. If you subscribe to enter the free monthly prize draw this month, the prize is a Platinum Verve Urban Hymns BPI presentation. That's a very good prize. It would look very nice, like behind me as well, but I'm not allowed to take part. You're not allowed to take part, Seán. But everyone that is watching is allowed to take part. So do subscribe to us if you haven't already done so. Lots of great content on this channel, so check it out. We are going to be discussing some of the big transfer rumours in Scotland when Scott joins us. And we're going to talk about how you kind of verify the information and where it comes from. One piece of transfer information that we can bring you that's just been confirmed is that Marian Shved has left Celtic to join Mechelen on a permanent transfer. He's another one, you look at it, Seán, he was someone who came in with a big sort of hype around him because of the YouTube videos, and that's something that when you see rumours that go out there and you see that your club's interested in XYZ, the first thing you do now is you go onto YouTube and you see a highlights clip of him, and that's the kind of player you're expecting to get.
Yeah, I think that it's probably not a good thing for football or football fans that that's what they do, that they go check YouTube for the clips, because you're not going to see the badge, you're not going to see the 90 minutes that you're there to watch in the stadium, which I'm sure we all can't wait to be doing as a fan again. So yeah, Shved was very highly rated and there was a lot of excitement about him, but when you're a team like Celtic, a massive club like that, the demands are very, very high, and if you don't hit the ground running, then things can deteriorate very quickly. So I mean, best of luck to him, but I think that Celtic do need to sort of cut any dead wood. It's such an important season to get back on track for them. So I'm sure that will be the plan from the folk at Parkhead, and Shved seems like a pretty reasonable one to get rid of at this point.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of movement that's going to be taking place at the minute. In terms of Kilmarnock, when Kilmarnock's looking to sign players, you've either seen them play in the Scottish leagues or maybe down south. Is that the first instinct as well? Is like, I'm going to try and find out as much as I can about him. I'm going to see if he's got a YouTube video. And has there ever been one where you've went, he's brilliant on YouTube, and then you see him play in the flesh and you go, who did we sign?
Going to YouTube isn't really my thing personally, just because, I mean, like you say, we don't tend to sign sort of high profile players. I've probably heard of them before, or they come from the lower leagues English football and they've perhaps not like done too much anyway. There probably isn't a YouTube video on them for a lot of the time. I tend to sort of wait and see for myself, but there's always hype around players. But I'm trying to think if there's one who sort of really fell down recently, but there's not. I mean, he's still there. Brandon Houndstruck was one who came from Portsmouth, and Portsmouth fans on social media were like really, really annoyed. Like they were going off on Twitter, like he's a player who should be playing for us. He's been fantastic. He's still young. He should be making a mark in that. Like Portsmouth are a decent League One side, so he thought if they're annoyed about him leaving, then he should be really good for us. And he just hasn't been. I would expect Callum Waters, who's a much more familiar face in Scottish football, to be Kelly's starting left back when he's fit. He's not fit at the moment. So it's funny how that works out. Just other fans, because I think fans are a great sort of outlet to listen to in situations like this. They know their stuff, but it wasn't the case, and that just happens sometimes.
And we're now delighted to be joined by Scott McPike from SM Media. Scott, thank you very much for joining us on this Friday evening. How are you doing?
Thanks very much for having me, Colin. Thanks. Really delighted to be on.
It's great to have you here. And Scott, you're going to take us through some of the big transfer rumours in Scotland. But first of all, tell us a bit about SM Media and how it actually started up.
It started up, it was a plan for a few years just to... Obviously, I was a broadcast journalism student, wanted to get into doing it. Wasn't really opportunities to get into like the media, like things like that, obviously. So I just decided during lockdown that the time was right to finally give it a go. So here we are. And
how have you found it so far? What's the reception been like?
Oh, brilliant. It's been quicker. Like the response has been like a lot better than I thought it would be. Like I thought it would just be kind of slow to start, but it's took off really quickly. Like we interviewed some great people.
Yeah, and Seán, that's obviously a career that you're looking to get into as well. Have you seen the kind of stuff that Scott's been doing? Is that something that encourages you to continue into your studies as well?
Yeah, it's inspiring to hear you say that you just started off off your own back because you didn't feel like the opportunities were there. I mean, I think lockdown was a great thing for that. Folk were able to sort of reassess and sort of just do things that they were passionate about and go for these. I think it's been a great help to a state of mind across the board. The fact that you can sort of just think about what you want to do and go for it yourself. So yeah, definitely, it's an exciting time.
Yeah.
Scott, we've got to talk about the idea of breaking transfer news now. We see it; it's all over. It's Sky sources say this, or Daily Record insiders say this. This is something that obviously you've got into. You've branched into SM Media. How did you start getting your sources together? Like, is it something that you already knew a couple of people here and there, and it's something you've just built up, or because I mean, there's so many people out there on social media that claim to be ITK or in the know, but there's only certain ones that can hit the nail on the head.
It's tough because like I've known a couple of people who kind of know like sources and things like that. I've known a couple of people for a couple of years, and you build more relationships when you talk to people, like particularly what we're doing. Like I'm sure you're the same as me. You build relationships and you get news before like kind of like, let's say, the mainstream media. But you hear these things. It's just if you believe them or not. But with me, it's been a couple of people just to start with tell me things have turned out to be true. You go with it because you're taking a big risk. Like you're putting your name to. Like I've been hammered the past couple of weeks for some of the things I've said that you don't. It's hard. The criticism's hard to take when you get it occasionally wrong, but again, it's just you're taking a gamble. Like hearing things, and then if you believe it and you believe it to be true, you need to if you put it out, you need to stick by it. It's simple. I found it tough when it turns out to be false, and you're like, oh, I've just told essentially a pack of lies, but you're believing it to be true at the time. So it's kind of a catch-22 kind of thing.
And when you get fed that information, say like someone says to you, "Oh, by the way, Odsonne Edouard's going to Brighton." How much work do you actually put in behind the scenes to sort of verify that before you actually post it out on social media?
Yeah, you need to put in a lot because you need to make sure that it's true or likely to be true. Like if you we can jump on Twitter every morning and see like Odsonne Edouard's going here, like Alfredo Morelos is going there. You need to do a bit of digging to see if it's true or not. And it does look like occasionally it does look as if kind of certain people are like leaving and things like that. But you've got to find out as much as you can. You've got to talk to as many people as you can. And people have been great with me, just telling me wee things, and it's up to me to take it from there and realise if it's true. If it's true, then you put it out, and hopefully it becomes real. And occasionally does, occasionally doesn't.
What folk always seem to forget, sorry, Colin, I was just going to say with fans, and Scott was talking about the criticism there, is it just because this was originally the story and it's now not the case doesn't mean the first bit wasn't true, it was a pack of lies.
Yeah.
It's an ever-changing landscape. Things can just fall through, deals can change for a number of reasons, but fans often seem to go, oh, he's just completely clueless, or she's just completely clueless, that reporter knows nothing. When, in matter of fact, at the time, that was a perfectly legitimate thing to say. It's just that the story's changed. It happens all the time in other walks of life, and it's true of football transfers as well.
I think it's a big thing as well. I think we're all fans. We all want to hear the latest news. Like we all want to know what's going on. Like we all just want that the clubs or Sky and things like that to be telling us what we've heard on Twitter and seen on Twitter and things like that. So we're all fans, and I get if it doesn't lead to anything, it's like, oh, you've told us a lot of rubbish. It wasn't rubbish. If it was rubbish, I wouldn't have, like myself or hundreds of other people probably wouldn't put it out because they would know that you would get tons of backlash.
Really interesting point coming in here from Barca Boy. Are a lot of these rumours players' agents leaking stories?
Sometimes it happens. Yeah.
Very, very.
I think it's the same with everything. I think it's the same with everything though. Like agents are a funny one. I know a couple of agents. I don't know a lot, but occasionally agents will want to get their player's name in the kind of public for a move, and occasionally that's what it leads to. Like they're putting out, and I've came across most of them by accident because nobody like tells you specific things, but occasionally you'll hear wee things and you'll be like, oh, I'm taking that. I'm gonna see if I can put that out myself without being really told you can. But again, it's taking risks. And I can't argue. I mean, it's a lot of attractions came the way of the channel, things like that. It's went really well. It's up to me to hopefully stick with it, and hopefully it goes the way you want it to, and hopefully the stories become as real as possible.
I'm going to throw one out here. Have you ever been surprised by like a random source, one person that's fed you information and you've went, never thought I'd hear from them?
Yeah.
That's
very
the answer we're getting, isn't it?
Yeah, and this was a weird one. It was a weird one. I'll probably tell it now. It's happened. Ange Postecoglou was a weird one because suddenly I get a couple of DMs from people across in Australia, and I don't know why I was getting them, but I imagine a lot of people were getting them the same as me, and that's how that kind of thing started. A couple of weeks before how Ange's name was first mentioned, there was a couple of things like Ange Postecoglou's potentially in the line for the Celtic job, and I was like, all right, okay. But at that time, it was all Eddie Howe. I mean, all we're hearing was it's Eddie Howe. So to then go out and say Ange Postecoglou is potentially getting the job, it became, I don't think it's the right time to put that out. As soon as Eddie Howe's name was ruled out, Postecoglou's name began to surface again. I thought, let's put it out, let's see where it goes, and it's turned out to be true. So,
would you say that's one of the best rumours that you've kind of been fed?
Yeah, that was a big one. That was a big one as well. When there was a couple about kind of the backroom team and things like that. I was quite lucky. I've kept in touch with them over the past few weeks, but there's a lot of Australian journalists who I've kept kind of a good kind of contact with over the past few weeks about this thing, because it's massive over there. Like, it's one of their biggest stories. So they're happy to. I was fortunate enough to talk to an Australian journalist on my channel just before Postecoglou was announced, and it was coming from, like, a really big story over there. So that was a big one. That was a big one as well. And then obviously recently a couple of Rangers ones have come in, like Joey Veerman. That was a rumour. It's still a rumour. It's not anywhere near close. But like, it's just, again, if you put, that's what I'm going back to about, like, fans want to know stories. Fans want to know what's happening. So if you tell a Rangers fan they're about to sign a player for £7 million, they are going to respond, and they are going to take that seriously. And same with Celtic, like Celtic fans, and even like other fans, like clubs in the Premiership and things like that. As soon as you put a transfer rumour out with them, they do take it seriously, and it becomes, they want to know more.
We're going to get a wee bit more out of you on some of the transfer rumours that's out there. But Seán, just before we move on, as a journalism student, is there any advice you're looking for from Scott who's been through that?
If you just send me all his contacts, that'd be fantastic. I appreciate that. Just all the sources.
I'm the same, mate. I'm the same, mate. It's just weird. It's weird because, like, 2 years ago, I was just a fan wanting to hear these stories as well, and now I'm really fortunate to be in the situation. I'm hearing things before, like, fans. I'm hearing things. I'm now putting myself in the responsibility of putting things out. So it's a weird change. It doesn't really feel. It feels a lot different. It feels weird, just being that, doing that now, and kind of feeling different to how you would feel originally about a transfer rumour. But I love transfers. Transfers are I just love hearing transfer stories. So it is great to be involved in it. I like involved in some way in hearing them.
There must be some buzz to sort of, like, if you love transfers, to then sort of deliver them yourself. And although you say, like, it must be scary as well, because if you get it wrong, then it means that people are gonna criticise you. But to be involved in it must just be a really exciting time.
Aye, definitely. Yeah, it's the summer as well. That's what we're football fans. We love hearing transfer stories, because there's no real football on yet. You're waiting on who's going to be the next player to come in and things like that. That is the highlight of your summer if you're a football fan.
And Scott is very shortly going to be taking on the defending champion in the quiz here, Seán. It will be our final ever Insomniac quiz. Maybe we'll carry that on into our new project, Seán, that we can't discuss at the minute yet.
I think we have to.
But there is a couple of big transfer rumours going around in Scottish football, and it would be naive not to get your input on some of them, Scott. Starting with the biggest one that's out there at the minute in terms of incomings, which is Joey Veerman from Heerenveen. You said that's a bit of a rumour. Has there been any sort of developments on that one?
The most I've heard, and I've been kind of hearing it from the Dutch side, because to their eternal credit, Rangers, you don't hear a lot from Rangers. You don't hear much at all from Rangers on, like, possible transfers. It's only when it's near enough done Rangers kind of put things out. But the Dutch side is Rangers have put a bid in. I think there's another club close to putting a bid in Italy. there was a team pulled out in Italy. I think it was Hellas Verona pulled out. But I do think that's what, if this happens, it's down to maybe three things. It will either be Rangers qualifying for the Champions League, and it becomes kind of, they've got a lot more money to spend and potentially selling a player, and if injuries. I see this going all the way. I don't think this will be done anytime soon. I could see this potentially going late into the window, but Rangers are really interested, to my understanding, and I think that's that Veerman's kind of the main target. I don't really think, I've not heard them been linked to anybody else. Obviously, they brought Lundstrom in. I know midfield's an area they want to strengthen, so that's Veerman seems to be the target.
In terms of outgoings, I think you've got the two big ones in Scotland at the minute. You've got Alfredo Morelos and you've got Odsonne Edouard. Starting with Morelos to Porto, do you think that's one that will happen?
No, not any. Maybe possibly later on, but not right now. I think it's went quite quiet. I think Porto are looking at other targets as well. That was all down to, I think Porto were close to selling a player to Liverpool. I think it was Octavio. I think he was close to selling to Liverpool, but that went quiet. So they did put a bid in, and I think the bid was rejected. I don't see that happening anytime soon. I don't think that will happen. I don't think Rangers want to sell right now. Obviously, with the Champions League qualifiers coming up, I think Morelos is a key player in that. So I don't think they'll potentially maybe think about it later on if they get through. But I think they want Morelos for Champions League qualifiers, to be honest.
Are finances having a big impact on some of these transfers? I mean, we saw Chris Ayer just depart for £13.5 million down to Brentford. It did look as though the money's starting to come back into it, but there's still certain teams that are struggling.
Yeah, I think it's a more thing as well. I don't know if you're a bit used, but this is the quietest transfer window I remember in a long time. I think it's because obviously the Euros and things like that, and I think it's COVID's obviously played a part, but there's nothing really major happening. Like, there's no massive deals. Obviously Sancho happened today, but there's no big deals. Like the whispers of Pogba, that's the only one I remember. I think COVID's having a massive impact on, and Brexit will have as well. Like, it'll be a lot different to get a European player in, for example, than it would have been 2 years ago when it was UK were still in the EU and there wasn't as many kind of hurdles to jump through. But it's the same with everybody. Like, I think every single area of work, I think everybody will be in the same boat of, we want to keep our pennies for as long as possible in case something kind of kicks off. Like we've seen with, like, obviously you were talking about the Premier Sports Cup earlier, that COVID's still having a massive impact on that. So it's still a thing, and financially, like, particularly Scottish clubs, they don't want to be spending tons of money on players until they know if they're going to have a full season. Like, it could still, because COVID could still outbreak and seasons could be stopped and things like that. Until they know everyone's going to be back to normal, I think there will be a lot kind of. I think it will be harder for teams to do business to get players in. Sometimes
it's not just COVID that stops the Premier Sports Cup. Sometimes it's squad registration, Seán, isn't it?
Aye.
The game still happened. But just lost it.
One coming in here from Jerry H, a regular viewer here. Eddie to Brighton or Palace? What's your gut feeling on that one, Scott?
I know Brighton have put a bid in, and I think Palace are close to putting a bid in, because I think Crystal Palace have brought somebody in. I think Vieira's brought a kind of head of recruitment in who was responsible for getting Edouard to PSG, and I think he's been involved with Edouard's agency or something. Like, I know there's certainly connections with Palace with Edouard. That'll only come up kind of the past couple of days, but Brighton put a bid in of, I think it's something like 20 million. That's a lot more than the originally. I think Leicester had a bid accepted. I don't know if they did. No, sorry, I don't think they had it accepted, but I know Leicester bid 15 million for Edouard, and that was being discussed. So if 15 million was accepted, I imagine 20 million will be, because I know he wants to leave.
Seán, that would be a massive return on investment for Edouard, considering he's only got 12 months left on his contract.
Yeah, that'd be a very good move for all parties, I think. I mean, I don't know, Brighton aren't sort of one of the top Premier League sides, and I think that Edouard would benefit from playing in a team that are sort of, I think Morelos is more type of player who could fit in towards the bottom of the table, whereas Edouard, I would say, needs a bit more sort of good football, but Brighton do play that. They created loads of chances last season, but just didn't have anyone to finish them. Edward might not be the most clinical finisher, but I think he's still proven in Scotland that he's a fantastic player who I would miss in the Premiership. Him and Morelos, if they both leave this summer, it'll be a great shame because they've brought so much quality, and Morelos more than just quality on the pitch, but something to talk about off it as well. So I think that there'll be great losses to the Scottish game.
See with Edward as well, I'm curious your thoughts on this. What do you think is like a good profit to make in Edward? Obviously 9 million Celtic paid for him. I know they've obviously, I think there's 40% of profit goes to PSG. Mm-hmm. How much is a good profit to make on Edward? I know he's got 1 year left in his deal, but surely when they signed him for 9 million, they were expecting to make a massive profit on him.
I think the biggest thing here is the fact he's only got 12 months left on his deal. Yeah. So, I mean, was it somewhere in the region of £21 million meant to be the bid that went in? So you're talking that you would get 12 million, 40% profit going to PSG, so you'd make about £7-8 million in profit off of that.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a bad deal, all things considered. He's someone that could go and run his contract down to the end of the season, and he could still score 20 goals, and for me, that's fair enough. So if Celtic see this as a time to cash in, then I think that's the right move for them.
Yeah,
a couple of other rumours coming in. I'll just throw some names at you quickly, quick fire, to see if you think it will happen or not. First one, Fraser Forster.
No, don't think that'll happen. But there's another thing as well. Like, I don't know, but with Barkas, do you keep faith in Barkas, or do you? I think keep every season going back in for Fraser Forster is a mistake, because it's a lot of money and for a loan every season. It's no, Celtic never sign him permanently. I don't think they've got the. I don't think Southampton will sell for any less than what they paid for, which I think was like 9.5.
Yeah.
So, what about Barkas? Do you give Barkas another chance, or do you go in for a new keeper?
I would probably say they need a third goalkeeper to challenge Bain and Barkas this season. And you can catch all the goalkeeper chat on a Celtic State of Mind on this channel. We'll try and keep it as neutral as possible. Another couple of names to throw out there. Mbaye Niang for Celtic.
Potentially if Edward goes, but I think it would only be if Edward goes. I've heard about a Australian striker that Celtic are looking at who used to play in Scotland, and that's all I'll say. But it's not. It's only whispers now. But is
that Jamie McLaren?
It's potentially, yeah. That's all I'll say. That's a wee exclusive for you. But that's only at the talking stage yet. It's only like paper talk.
Exclusive transfer rumours on the last ever Football Insomniac, Seán. We are breaking the news today.
All I've heard is Celtic are inquiring. I think it's the only kind of wee thing I've heard.
Finally, just 3 to round it up then. George Baldock from Sheffield United.
Potentially, I think Nathan Byrne. Is it Nathan Byrne that's at Derby? I think he's the one I've heard more of. I think they are desperate for a right back, so I think Nathan Byrne I've heard more of than George Baldock. I think George Baldock's fee was something like 5 million, and I think Byrne's a bit cheaper, so I don't know what. But Byrne seems to be the one over Baldock, I've heard.
A very interesting one that seems to have broken whilst we were on air. Diego Costa.
No,
I don't think
so.
First
I've heard of that.
Really not.
But the big one down south, Harry Kane to Man City.
Again, I don't pretend to know of any. I'm hearing more about Scottish gossip. I've not really heard English gossip. My instinct is that'll happen, because I think he will leave. And I don't really see many other clubs being a destination for Kane. I can only really see City signing him. So if I can see that being a goal, yeah.
And are you able to cheer up? Oh, sorry, on you go, Seán.
I was just going to say that when we're talking about transfers and sort of away from Celtic, those bids that were put in for that St Mirren pair I thought were derisory. Like Jamie McGrath for 300k and Colin McCarthy for 100k were the reported fees. But Jamie McGrath scored 17 goals or something like that last season. 300k from Wigan. Like, I'm glad that those have been knocked back, because that's the kind of fees that Scottish football used to say aye to straight away.
Yeah, I think that's the thing though. I think because of like the past few years, like some ridiculous bids have been accepted for Scottish players from English teams. I think that English teams are always going to lowball Scottish teams for players that play in the Premiership. They, even with League One, they do see Scotland as beneath them, apart from the Red 2. They do think they can pick up a player for 100 grand who's probably worth 5 times that. It's just, I think that's always going to be the case, especially now.
Like you were saying though, because of Brexit, the Scottish market is now going to be more vital to English clubs, isn't it? So they're going to have to start paying more money because, like, the Scottish market doesn't involve all the sort of like legal stuff. So I think that they'll need to start paying some money. And yeah, Jamie McGrath 300k, Colin McCarthy 100k isn't going to slide for St Mirren. I'm glad that's the case.
Yeah, I think one of the most impressive deals from an English club was Luton bringing in Alan Campbell for free. I think that's a great deal. It's a great deal for them.
Josh Doig is one that's been spoke about. Do you see him leaving Hibs this summer, or do you think they hold on and try and cash in later on?
I think they'll probably hang on and cash in later on. There was early talk about him going down south, but I've not heard anything on that in a wee while.
And just finally, is there any incoming Kilmarnock news that can cheer Seán up on this Friday evening?
I think one of my pals is in the know with Kilmarnock, and he's been saying I think they're maybe looking at another striker, but I think they've done really well getting their business done early. They've brought in some great bit of business, like the boy Murray. Was it Murray that plays with Inferno?
Yeah,
he's a good. Danny Armstrong's a good bit of business as well. I know him. He's close to where I stay as well. He's a good player, and keeping Chris Burke as well. That's a great bit of business. Just keep having his experience. I think that's a great bit of business. But I do see Kilmarnock coming straight back up. I think they've probably recruited well, and I think they're leaps and bounds clear. I think of every other team in that league that could come back to bite me in May. But
I'll know who to blame when we don't go up. I'll know who I'm putting up.
I was just about to move on, but there's a name getting fired through the comment section here. Kevin Nisbet. Do we see him leaving Hibs this summer, or is it too early? He's only a year into a 4-year deal that he signed.
I know. Well, obviously, I think he wanted to leave in January. I think Birmingham were close to signing him, and the kind of deal had a snag. I think England. He could potentially go to England. I know Brentford. If Brentford were looking at him, if they decided to sell Tony, but Celtic and Rangers, I don't think there's massive interest there. Like, I don't think there's. I've not heard anything to say there is, but I think there's a couple of clubs in England that were looking at him at the start of the window, but nothing's really. It's went quiet with Kevin Nisbet, so I think he will stay at Hibs.
So if you do have any other rumours you'd like to hear Scott's opinion of, you can reach out to him on Twitter. But we have to move on to the quiz because we're running miles behind schedule. This is the final Football Insomniac quiz. Seán is the defending champion, having won the last 4 weeks in a row. Scott has taken him on in a penalty shootout style quiz. Seán, as the defending champion for the last time, would you like to go first or second?
Well, it was so important last week because your questions and the other lot were horrible. But I've said it before, I've got a good gut instinct on this, so I'm going second.
You're going to go second. So Scott comes up first. Scott, your first question tonight. Emile Smith-Rowe, someone we spoke about earlier, signed a new deal at Arsenal this week. What was his new squad number that he was given?
Number 10.
It is number 10. 1-0 to Scott. Very confident start, Seán. Are you going to regret going second? You're chasing your tail. Your first question is, which former England star is currently under pressure as the manager of Inter Miami?
Phil Neville.
It is Phil Neville. 1 each after 1. Scott, up next. Which English Premier League club announced this week that their new shirt sponsor paid their fee in cryptocurrency?
Watford.
It is Watford. 2-1 after 2.
That was a guess. That was a total guess. I genuinely didn't know that.
Yeah, apparently they've partnered with Bitcoin and stuff before, which is very interesting. Seán, this one for you. Motherwell lost to Airdrie in the first derby between the teams in how long?
Oh, I think it's 2004. Is it 17 years?
It's 14 years. So that's 2-1 to Scott. Oh, I'm telling you, you're going to regret not taking the first one.
I mean,
Scott,
I wouldn't have got that. Cryptocurrencies.
Scott, your third question. Boca Juniors went El Loco after losing to which team in the Copa Libertadores this week? By the way, before Scott answers this, if anyone's not seen the video, go and watch it on YouTube after this. That was outstanding.
I've seen it, and I think it's Flamengo, but I think I'm wrong. Actually, as soon as I thought it, I was like, nah, I don't think it's Flamengo. But I'm gonna just say it because I can't think anything else.
Seán, who would you have went with?
I don't know.
It was Atletico Mineiro. They lost to in the Copa Libertadores, which means it's still 2-1. Chance to equalise here, Seán.
Yeah.
Inter Milan announced their first new shirt sponsor in 26 years this week. Who is it?
Can I answer the old one? No, I have absolutely no idea. I don't know. Try and guess. A State of Mind are the new shirt sponsors Inter Milan.
That would be a good one, but unfortunately that's not the case. Scott, do you know who it is?
I don't know, but I'm going to guess UNICEF.
It's not. That would have been a nice one though. It's a company called Socios, who are the new
course.
Still 2-1 after 3. 2 to go. Scott, your chance to make it 3-1. Which Premier League striker scored a hat-trick in Brazil's opening Olympic tie?
Richarlison?
It was Richarlison. 3-1 to Scott. Seán, you nearly need this. Otherwise, we're going to bow out in Insomniac. Is you not the champion? Rangers play Real Madrid this weekend in a friendly. Who was the last Scottish side that Real Madrid faced?
The last Scottish side that Real Madrid faced.
And by the way, Jerry H is in here winding both of these up, saying that the questions are too easy again.
Definitely not. I don't know. I know that Kelly held Real Madrid to a 2-2 draw at Rugby Park in 1965.
You just wanted to put that stat in there, didn't you?
Yeah, Puskas played. I don't know. Aberdeen.
Now, if I was going on a competitive match, I'd give you the point because it is Aberdeen. But they played a friendly against Celtic in 2012 as part of the International Challenge Cup.
I thought you meant competitive match, so that's why I said Aberdeen.
I don't know. Scott, what do we do? Do we give him it?
Nah, it's up to you. You're the host.
Keep it interesting.
Do you know what? It makes it interesting for the last one. I'll give you it, right? But we spoke about this last week, so you're not listening.
I can't remember that, so I wouldn't know about that.
So it was a friendly over in America. And I think Dylan McGeoch broke his collarbone or something like that. It took out in a really bad tackle. And it kind of ruined the Celtic career. Jerry H is coming in to say 0 points. Terence Pat saying has to be a competitive game to count. Look, it's the last ever show. We're just being nice to Seán. He's had a horrible season as a Kelly fan, so he might get put to bed after this one. Question 5, Scott. Heung-min Son signed a new 4-year deal at Spurs, but which year did he join the club?
2017.
It was 2015. Now, this could be the most undeserved comeback if you get this, Seán. The comment section are raging that you're still in this. Which top flight?
It's fine.
No, on you go.
No, Pat's agreeing with me. It has to be a competitive game to count. I agree.
All right, okay. Which top flight Scottish club has been the most active in the transfer window, adding 12 players?
And the top flight? Adding 12. Who's saying 12 players?
Jerry H saying it's rigged. Feed the Bear saying no, Colin, he's cheating.
It'll be funny. I just want to get this right now, just for the rage. I'm going to say. I don't actually know. I'm going to say Ross County.
Scott, have you got the answer?
I think he's right.
He's wrong. It's Livingston. Livingston added their 12th signing today, which means, Scott, you are victorious. It is a 3-2 victory. You have a 15-second goal. On you go.
See, to be fair, I wouldn't get the Celtic one either. I wouldn't get the Real Madrid versus Celtic. So I would have said Aberdeen. That's only I can remember. Rangers played Real Madrid in like '63, but all I remember is the Cup Winners' Cup. Aberdeen beat Real Madrid. That's the only time I would have said.
That's all I had as well.
I'm keeping the tiebreaker that I've had now for 2 weeks for the next time we ever roll this quiz out. Hopefully it won't be too long. Look, guys, thank you very much for joining us today. Scott, there's been a lot of great comments coming in. Where can people find you on social media?
If you type in SM Media onto Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, places like that, YouTube as well, you'll find us. There's potentially a lot of new content coming out in the next few weeks. We're back to doing my Scottish football show. I've got some interviews with some really good former players and things like that. And there's a lot coming up in the next month or so because it's been a year since the channel started, so we're going to do a lot of kind of stuff for the first year of the channel. So yeah, you can follow us on all social media, SM Media, and you'll find us.
And Seán, I just want to thank you for being my co-host on this last series, along with Callum McFadden. It's been brilliant speaking to you guys as we closed out the season, as we moved to a Friday night platform. Thank you to everyone who's joined us as guests. Thank you to everyone who's lost very kindly to Seán over the last couple of weeks in the quiz. Thank you to everyone who's been in. Thank you to everyone who's been in the comment section. It's been a pleasure putting this podcast together. We will bring it back very soon. But until then, myself and Seán are working on something. You'll maybe see us on the channel very shortly. But enjoy your weekends, folks. It's been great being the Football Insomniac. And until next time, stay safe.